for being here and talk about what a career in infosec means. Fun fact about my friend is that we both rock the BlackBerry. Any other BlackBerry users in this room? Diehards. Woo! Oh yeah, Tim. Right on. We maybe get a group photo later on. So he's also left lots of time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. So enjoy, and a warm welcome to Thomas. Thank you.
We'll let the soundboard figure that out. That's beyond me. All right. Welcome to my presentation. I think it's pretty cool. I had a lot of fun putting it together because I used to be in your seat. It's called Prepping for a Career in InfoSec. So a little bit about me. The year is 2004, and I enroll in network engineering technology here at SAIT. That program has since been discontinued and renamed to whatever it is now. That same year, World of Warcraft launches, and I don't drop out. So that's pretty cool. After graduating that 2-year diploma, I end up working what I classify after graduating that 2-year diploma, I'm working what I believe is a dead-end job installing printers at Husky Energy, and I go, there's got to be something more to this out there. So that's when I talked to some of my previous students in NNT and convinced one of them to join me in the SAIT BAIS program, which is also now discontinued, which is unfortunate because I think it's pretty awesome. Nate has one, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So fast forward that extra 1 year of this case studies and a year of mandatory book work, and I'm fortunate. I land a position at Graycon Group here in Calgary. At the time of my employment there, they had 5 different areas of practice. One of those areas of practice was information security. Least to say, I left with really positive impressions of the industry. I had never seen it previously, so I'm really thankful for my opportunity there, and some of the folks took me under their wing. And I go, you know what? This is the group I want to practice in. I want to move out of doing desktop support. I want to move out of doing help desk work. I want to move into information security. Unfortunately, some excuses started to pile up, and I go, okay, well, I know where I want to go. It's just going to take some work to get there, so I start working my people network. And in this case, it was my girlfriend at the time who asked for my resume. She said, somebody really wants your resume, Thomas. And I go, okay. So I hand it over blind, and lo and behold, I got a call back from Deloitte a week later. And within 6 weeks, I'm moving out to Vancouver, and I joined as a junior IS consultant. Since that time, I had been consulting for nearly my entire working profession. It's been fun. Is there change in the future? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. So let's talk about selecting your character. You are a new SAIT graduate. Perhaps you're not ready to graduate just yet, and you're just in your first year. That's A-okay, because you'll be here next year. You're kind of hungry, not only for food, but maybe some money. You're armed with some cool skills that SAIT has taught you through some amazing instructors, some of which I see here today. So thank you, instructors. You know who you are. Hello, William. You've got maybe a couple years of general IT experience, which will be extremely beneficial once we get to plotting your course. And you may be interested in information security, which is why you're in that seat right now, but you're unsure how to proceed, unsure where to go next. So, level 1, navigating information security and plotting your course. So when I talk about information security, I have to kind of define it first, because some folks think of this as an enigma where you can't really classify it. So I've gone to what's called the Cia Triad here. So the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of systems, data, and applications. No matter where you end up within information security, these 3 principles will be present. So burn them into your head, because it's moving forward, you're going to be using them a lot. So now there's different roles within information security, and they're very hard to define. There's no definite list. So here's sort of the buckets I broke out. So we got roles on one side, and we've got likelihood that as a new graduate, you can jump right into those roles. Now, unfortunately, this is where I have to deliver some hard news. The likelihood in some of these positions coming from a new graduate and hopping into them is really low. Note I say low, not impossible. Nothing here is impossible if you have the connections and know-how. The place that you're most likely going to be able to hop into as a new graduate, meeting those characteristics we spoke about previously, is IS operations and administration, or in this case, IS solution providers. So I know this is a big Cisco shop. I walked by my old lab, still full of Cisco equipment. Cisco does have information security products and solutions. This is a good stepping stone. I know for a fact that some of the students I went to school with went right into Cisco, and one of them there, 9 years later, is still at Cisco. So if you have that opportunity to take Cisco up on it, go for it. Any avenue is better than no avenue. But you're going to face some challenges, obviously the hiring part, and I'll have some tips to help you out throughout that, but also the investment part. It's important that you find a potential employer who's willing to invest in you. So now this is moving beyond the initial hire. This is them going to send you out on training, maybe paying for some of your certifications, maybe allowing you to do some job shadowing. That's the bad news slide. It's also important to understand that those roles I spoke about previously, they're not linear, right? You'll have a starting point, and we'll get into that in a minute, but you'll find through your own experiences that as you branch out and you experience different things that maybe some of them suck, maybe them you're not very interested in. So you're going to go back and reinvent yourself and retool. As you get on in your experience, so I'm about 10 years in now, you'll find that you have a really big pool of skills, and you may not need all of them for an individual role. So, where do you find these roles I'm speaking of and showed you previously? Well, we're all kind of, I'm expecting junior-ish, intermediate security folk, maybe some senior ones in here. That's great, but you're at a fantastic conference to do some people networking, and that's something I'll focus on later on in this slideshow. So go out, talk to them, because I know some of them are empowered to do hiring. So there's sort of three buckets that you can possibly find these roles into. There is a fourth, but I call it the unicorn. So full-time for an organization. So in this case, think of yourself embedded in a team working for a company like WestJet, the City of Calgary, ATCO, ATB, or in some cases solution providers such as Cisco or Palo Alto. There's also full-time for organizations that consult. So there's consulting organizations out there that charge you out by the hour, you go out onto an environment and you tell people what to do. Or maybe you do it for them, or maybe it's a mix of both. So in this case, the big four, so the consulting firms, the Hirschevek Group, Longview Systems, Graycon IT, that's where I started, etc. There's a third category, and that's placement firms. In this case, they may have in their back pocket some full-time roles or some contract positions. There is some inherent risk to taking contract positions. I'll leave it up to you if you want to pursue that route or not, knowing that it's going to be temporary. So example companies like that is going to be SI Systems, Tech Systems, Procom. And then there's the fourth category, which I call the unicorn, and that's internship programs. I was fortunate in high school to have an opportunity to take an internship at the City of Calgary, working on desktop support, and that's how I got my boot hours. Doesn't mean that they're not out here. It means that they may not just be in Calgary at this point in time, so be willing to travel abroad and seek out those unicorn positions. If I had to go back and do it all over again, I wouldn't really change a thing, and that is I would look for a company that has a large enough IT operation where I can go sample the buffet. And what I mean by that is I can go out, talk to some of my coworkers, go and job shadow them for a little bit, maybe talk to my manager and get some permission to temporarily work over in their area, and truly find out what interests you, because information security is diverse. So a typical course I've seen out there is this, and a little bit of bad news, yes, you're going to have to do some grunt work at the start, and what I mean by that is the desktop side, in this case the printer support, whatever it might be. Get that experience, although you may be beyond it skill set wise. So you've done that, so now you're going to start to specialize maybe in systems administration. You're now the network administrator, or you're part of the Windows team, or you're part of the virtualization team. Cool. Do your boot time there as well. But while you're there, prepare yourself for the next step. Start to plant the seeds in your employer's head that, you know what, I want to go into information security. So the next step would be, in this case, security operations. These will be called different sorts of positions, such as analyst-like positions on LinkedIn or Indeed. They exist, and they do hire juniors, and I do have clippings of an example posting that's active right now, to prove what I'm talking about isn't bullshit. So you do your 2 or 3 years of, in this case, information security operations, administration. You're sampling out different information security practices. Now we call it the winner's circle. You get to elevate yourself to whatever practice you really want to specialize in. There's a lot of dots there because there's a lot of roles. Again, I try to define them in those little buckets, but there's a lot of specializations that you can get into. You want to be at the winner's circle, and I think you can get there within 5 years. Tip of the day is once you hit SecOps, or even when you're in your system admin years, start to take a look at where your passion lies. I'm now 10 years into this, and I'm finding my passion lies somewhere not anything to do with network engineering like I did, right? The sooner you know where your passion lies, you then know where to set your goals, expectations, and tune your skill set. Speaking of skill set, level 2. When you graduate from your program, and I saw that there's 3 ITS programs here now, you're going to come out with a modest skill set and you're going to be able to complete some pretty simple jobs. I don't mean that as a bad thing either. You're going to do them damn well. But your goal should be to build out additional skills. This shouldn't be your end point. Leaving SAIT is not the end point. You're not going to stop learning at that point in time. You have to grow more to live into those roles. And you can get these skills in a variety of ways. Gaining employment, furthering your education, or community participation. On the education front, I was lucky to have the opportunity to take SAIT's BAI program, which again, unfortunately, no longer exists. I did double check last night, NATE does. So this is if you're looking to take on an extra year of schooling, plus a mandatory paid internship. And they will help you place. So you don't have to be out on your own in this case. However, you folks have the lucky opportunity of taking advantage of SAIT's information security program. This is something that didn't exist when I was on campus. So check it out. It may be something you want to consider if you're willing to be a student a little bit longer. But there's also what I call freemium offerings through online post-secondaries. So Coursera, in this case, has information security courses that you can take individually, sometimes free of charge. Maybe you want a certificate of completion. The most expensive course I've seen is $500. That's not bad. Last, certification training books. Books are, they're not free, but they're not super expensive either, unless you dive down on the deep web and get them for free. But anyways, that's besides the point. Books, you can do some manual reading as well. So employment has a high level category. That's just common sense. But I have to stress, take advantage of training opportunities if you get offered them. At my previous employer, what would happen is a vendor would come on board. We've just partnered with this brand new information security solution vendor, and they offer free training, and nobody would take them up on it. Right? Lost opportunity. If your employer is willing to pay for certifications, do them. It's free. Invest your time. Maybe they'll even pay you to take time out of your workday to go and do the training. Request an employment plan. And what I mean by that is some human resources departments are invested in your personal growth at that employment site. In that case, make your goals known. Hey, I'm here doing help desk. I took a look at the information security group. I got to talk to the folks there. I really want to go that direction. What do I have to do to get there? So make your intentions clear. Nobody can read your mind. Community. This is a sort of an understated fact, but you're all part of a community here now. You're at Calgary BSides. This is the second year running. I saw the registration list, and we're talking hundreds of attendees. Go and meet these folks. You can learn from them by seeking a mentor. Some folks would actually really like to have juniors or associates or fresh students and take them under their wing and teach them what they know. You have to invest time, but not necessarily money. So if your budget's strapped, it's a pretty good idea. That job posting I spoke about previously, here's an example of what I'd classify as a junior SecOps position. And unfortunately, it's kind of squishy on the board. I'll have to make it bigger next time I do this slideshow. They've given you a cheat sheet as to what skills you need to have. They just specifically call it the skills category. Something you can do is when you leave SAIT, when you graduate, pull up your skills, write them all down. Go to the job postings, Take a look at those. Check off the ones you have, and that you can provide them some sort of assurance that you actually have them, such as example work. Whatever you don't have, flag those skills. When you flag those skills, follow up. Seek out how to acquire those skills through those 3 buckets we spoke about previously. Oops. When you grow and become a stout professional, again, your skill set will be really large. Well, you don't want a 7-page resume, all right? Nobody's gonna read that. So when it comes to applying for these roles that they have posted, make sure you take the time to trim down your skill tree and customize it to the example job posting. You know, a senior position isn't necessarily going to care about your desktop experience, but they will absolutely care about, say, your forensics analyst skills. Certifications, always a hot button issue, even when I was a student here. Do I take my CCNA certification? Do I go and invest that money on my own dime to do it? I don't have a solid answer for you. I'd just say, take a look at the job postings that you're interested in, and again, work backwards. What sort of certifications are they looking for? Again, if this is something that you have, great, but if you don't, seek it out. So in this case, they've listed in a couple certificates, which folks fresh out of school can get, but they've also listed some that need a couple of mandatory years of experience before you can get them. An example of that is a CISSP. You'll see that mentioned throughout the job postings. It's sort of the bare minimum to clear human resources filtering. This doesn't mean you should give up, though. There's 3 certificates that I went out this morning and took a look at to see that you'd be able to acquire coming straight out of school and getting a book and learning it and taking the exam. These certifications will set you apart from the pack seeking that exact same position, right? We'll get into marketing yourself in the next level, but consider these certifications. And even if you can't, even if you want to go for the CISP right off the bat, you won't be able to call yourself CISP certified, but you will be able to call yourself an associate. So there's no wasted effort. Again, you're trying to prove that you're confident and you have those skill sets. You're trying to market yourself to a potential employer. Go get it. Level 3, marketing yourself. So, are you just a new SAIT graduate? I don't think so. You're Inspector Gadget. Don't frame yourself in a way that makes you undesirable. SAIT has armed you with a lot of really good skills. And it's not just the skills, too. It's not just the technical skills. It's the soft things that you've picked up over time as well. Just because you don't necessarily have a tool to complete the job right at that very second doesn't mean you don't have the skills to go out onto the internet, to go out to a library and learn them real quick. You're highly adaptable. You can move quickly. You learn fast. You're Inspector Gadget. Back in the old days of marketing yourself, it was just the resume, people networking, and business cards. Now, it's everything in the old days plus a LinkedIn profile and a professional bio. If you don't have those objects, you've got some additional barriers working against you to break into the information security profession. And I can't stress LinkedIn enough. You really need one of these. When I bumped into one of my old professors a couple of months back, I went into her program, and she said, "Why don't you talk to the students?" And I started talking about LinkedIn, and I asked for a show of hands who had one. There's just 1 or 2. That's really unfortunate. You're missing out on free opportunities to market yourself and do intelligence gathering on resumes. So when you leave here, maybe one of the deliverables you can do is spin up a LinkedIn profile. It won't take you very long. Additionally, as you fill in that LinkedIn profile and hit off on certain keywords, recruiters are going to come to you with opportunities, so you no longer have to hunt them. You have to be passionate about yourself too, and I always go down to this example. Now there will be sound. Whoops.
Developers, 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 developers. Yes!
So why am I showing you Steve going nuts in front of a Microsoft crowd back in the old days? It's because he captures a really key aspect about marketing yourself, and that is be passionate, be energetic, be proud to talk about yourself and what you've learned here at SAIT, as well as whatever industry experience you've gathered in the meantime. Be able to talk about yourself. Some people call it the elevator pitch. I'm 10 years into this, and I still suck at the elevator pitch, but I can certainly talk about myself and where I've been. You should be able to do the same. Marketing yourself is important to stand out from the others seeking employment. Those roles I spoke about previously, there's going to be a lot of other folks competing for them, so you've got to market yourself. I don't have enough time to tell you about marketing yourself, but I can certainly give you what I think is the next step. And in this case, it's the book You Inc., and this was pulled off of Amazon.ca yesterday. I don't like reading personally. I only read if it's going to really benefit from the material within it, and this one was a big help to me 6 years ago. It'll change your perspective on how you view yourself seeking employment. So pick it up. It's a worthwhile read. It's light. You could probably get it done over a weekend. So let's say you've done all these great things. You have now navigated the information security profession. You know where you want to go and what role you want to achieve. You've trained up and you've gotten the skills to meet off on that role, those roles, the expectations in that role. You've marketed yourself and have landed the interview. Well, what now? And this is the end level. So, spoke about marketing. If you've learned how to market yourself, the interview is going to come naturally. You're going to be mentally prepared for that interview because you're able to talk about yourself and all the cool things you've done and learned. An interview is just simply an extension of a marketing opportunity of yourself. You're now there in person, over the phone, or on Skype. Bring in examples of your work. Some other industries call this a portfolio. I met up with the instructors a couple months ago, and I got to see, I think it was with George's class, a really cool case study where you're giving a network environment with a bunch of old equipment, and you had to come up with a plan to replace that old equipment. That's fantastic material to bring to an interview. So when they go, tell us about your technical skills, you can go, check all this cool stuff and show them the binder. Show them what you've done, walk them through it. Be proud to talk about that work if you put effort into it. When you finally receive that offer too, something I find new graduates doing is they just initially sign off on it. And you can do that, absolutely. If you feel like you don't have any risk, you don't want to take any risk of this opportunity missing you by, then just sign on the dotted line. But negotiating salary, that's a soft skill that they don't really prepare you for in any school I've been to. This book helped me out a lot. It gave me confidence to talk about salary and why I'm asking for the things I'm asking for when it comes to signing on with an employer. This book's getting a little bit more difficult to find. There's only a couple of copies left on Amazon. Maybe you can sleuth the dark web and find it. Don't know. Anyways, I'd encourage it. Check it out. So now you've aced the interview because you know how to market yourself. Sort of the last tip I'll leave you with is keep your negotiation offers reasonable. My brother is in application development, so that's really cool. He doubted himself when he got his initial offer. He read the book, he took some of the advice from it, came up with a reasonable counteroffer, and they signed off on everything. He got an instant $5,000 bump plus an extra week of vacation, just by asking. But keep the request reasonable, right? You can't go for the big six-figure number right off the bat. Think of other ways to work in things that you'd like to see, such as, hey, I want a dedicated training allotment for my manager's budget, so I can go out on training and boot camps and get this training and certifications that I've wanted. Additionally, and this does happen, I don't ace every interview or every time I bid on an RFP. After a little bit of time has passed and you think that interview didn't go so well, don't be afraid to go back and ask for some feedback. Some organizations will come back to you and go, and here's the areas you can improve upon. Sometimes you've got a good gut feeling as to how things went and where you could improve, but sometimes it's worthwhile to ask. You win. Congratulations. You got your job offer, you negotiated it, you capitalized on it, and now you're employed. You're well on your way. If I managed to bore you, I did put it all into Cole's notes, also known as the cheat sheet. Find what interests you by sampling all aspects of information security. Find employers that are willing to let you job shadow others so you can find what interests you and where your passion lies. Build out your skill set to match the roles, the requirements within that role. Work backwards from LinkedIn and Indeed. This is free intelligence gathering you get to do. Why not take advantage of it? And whenever possible, get IAS-specific certifications. I've left you 3 examples within this slideshow of things you can go do right now for certifications. And I see people taking photos and stuff. My understanding is this will be posted and is being filmed, so if you've missed it, don't worry. And then strive to get that perfect position by marketing yourself. Have materials available to showcase how awesome you are. Work the people network. This is a 2-day event. After you leave here, go on lunch and start working the people network. Introduce yourself. Come say hi to me. Get involved in the community. I had some additional material I wanted to tag to this, but I was worried about going over my time. There is little information security groups here in Calgary that you can get involved in. I've heard stuff about a Slack channel potentially that you can go nerd out in. Fantastic. Get your name known out there. Let them know that you're looking for a mentor. Let them know that you're wanting to learn skill X, Y, Z, and if there's any projects you can get involved in. So now you're thinking, Thomas, this has all been dandy, but this is just your perspective. What do other people think? Well, I've sent out a big questionnaire to a lot of my clients that I work with at big organizations. They all have a greater amount of experience than I do. So I've got 10, they're 20 plus. And I said, guys, what sort of tips would you give to new graduates looking to break into information security? And these are their words, completely unedited. So if there are spelling mistakes in there, it's not my fault, it's theirs. So this is from Chris T, who is a security architect. He has been working for at least 20 years. Again, focusing on community, getting involved in Twitter, Slack, IRC. He calls them communication tools. They're also marketing tools. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, maybe him not so much. Don't be afraid to show off your works. Again, if you build it, show it. If you've done something really cool on your own accord, show it off. I even left you a nice tip there too about GitHub and showing off to potential employers. Again, validating what I've said. Python and PowerShell. So I know I spoke at cursory level, what sort of skills you'd be looking for. Certainly, there are some technical things there, and I know for a fact you're doing PowerShell. Python, not so sure. Interesting. Realize your skills are different. This is true. Your skill bucket is going to be different from every other person seeking employment at that one job position that's got posted. Be proud of those skills you have. Show them that they're different. Show why you're the best fit for that role. Poke at things, ask questions. Curious minds get questions, or get answers. So that was from Chris. Here's Kevin. He's an IT risk and compliance manager. I know we spoke a lot about security operations and administration. I didn't talk much about IT security GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, which I do, because you have the opportunity to take it offline and find people like me and ask them questions about it. Again, worried about hitting my time cap. So he's a manager. He's actually in a quite high up position. And in this case, he goes, good risk managers need good technologists. Working together equals security success. So a lot of folks will always envision themselves reporting up to a big boss man or lady, but there's not a lot of two-way communication going on. I personally don't like working in organizations like that. Your team, your objective is to secure the environment, whatever that environment has deemed critical or in this case confidential to that organization's operation. You're there to secure it, work as a team. Be able to communicate, in this case, technical items to non-technical audiences. You're all leaving here with a technical skill set. I did too. And for the first couple of years, I struggled to communicate my work to folks who may not necessarily have that same background. So you have to be able to translate the message, relate things to them. So when I spoke about the Cia Triad, you can apply it to something like your phone. You've got a password on it because you don't want people to see the material on it, right? You're backing that phone up because you want it to be available, and in case something happens to it, you want that data to be unaltered. So you can relate, be able to translate. Keep aware as to what's happening in the industry. And so in this case, he's given a couple good free deliverables. He follows some information security Twitter feeds. Krebs on Security, KREBS, one of my favorites. In this case, he also does podcasts, Sans Daily Internet Storm, free. Be a collector. Oh gosh, I remember his collection. Ooh, that's gross. He's got a lot of old school stacked printed papers. Again, you can borrow some of the ideas from those things. You can learn from them. Maybe you can go, hey, this is a skill I'd really like to get into after I read this white paper. It kind of interests me. Keep learning and reading. Again, stressing the fact that just because you're done your 2 years here at SAIT doesn't mean that's when the learning stops. Debbie, she's from Calgary here. She's got a couple years more experience than me. She's in a team lead position at a large organization here. I believe she leads somewhere in the realm of 10 people. So she had a lot to say. So she's really passionate about this. She's got 3 slides. Balance your skill set, right? So I go work backwards from a posted position and fill in the voids. In this case, she brings up a very good point, and that is balance that skill set too. The last thing you want to end up with is 100% technical skills, but you don't know how to do a PowerPoint presentation. That's not going to fly very well with potential employers. So balance it. It's good to specialize, but find the balance that makes sense for you. Do you need to have public speaking skills? No. Do you want them at some point in time? Maybe. Is that something that interests you? No. Then just put it down the lower on the priority chain. Go get something else. Again, focusing on be curious, ask questions, and avoid taking things at face value. Oh gosh, you probably put that in there for me, I'm their auditor. Ask why and how. Good questions, be curious. Technical stuff. So this is, from her perspective, from her employer, deep understanding of Windows architecture, networking, Unix, Linux, and database. In network engineering, I know for sure I did all 4 of those things, and I'm pretty confident you're doing those things now. Understand scripting, I know I did that, pretty confident you are as well. Coding, application development, that's beyond me. All the luck to you guys. Integration, data, know and love your debuggers. Good advice. Understand the underlying infrastructure, DNS, DHCP, NTP. I know you're all doing that. This is a fun one. Adhere to the ethics of this profession. Remember campsite rules and doing good rather than evil. We're just going to skip over that. There are places for less technical security professionals. I no longer consider myself a technical security professional. Back in the old days, when I was working at Deloitte, absolutely. I was doing penetration testing and secure application review. I no longer do that. I've moved on to governance, risk, and compliance. But it doesn't mean I've forgotten those things. I keep them in mind because they make me all the better information security professional. Understand the mission of the business and what you're out there to do, what you're actively trying to secure. This will help you during a job interview as well. They'll most likely add, well, what do you know about this company? Well, you should be able to answer that and come up with ideas or brainstorm as to what their next question is going to be about securing that sort of thing. Be able to communicate with business leaders. Again, you got a bunch of technical skills, be able to communicate those to non-technical audience. Be able to calculate costs and benefits. There's not unlimited pools of money for this activity, especially in Alberta right now. A lot of my clients are facing challenges when it comes to budget. So if you're going to go in there with a bunch of loaded ideas of buy all the security solutions that ever existed and we're going to do this thing, you're going to have to prioritize based on the potential benefit of those. Understand and appreciate strategy. Yeah, this got me caught up in the first couple of years myself because I wanted to go do everything right this second. Sadly, that doesn't always work. So you may have to take a back seat and comb back your expectations before you go all gung-ho. Be able to teach others. Oh, public speaking is an essential skill. Perfect. This is me giving back to the community. That's enabled my success. Maybe in 10 years' time, I'll be sitting down on this seat and one of you will be up here presenting, giving back. In life, this is sage advice. We always think of ourselves as professionals, and I'm just going to let my personal life just completely lapse. Work-life balance is extremely important, and I still struggle with it to this day. Find other interests that are completely opposite to what your security job is. That makes sense. You can eat, breathe, and live this thing for a certain amount of time before it starts to kill you. Take care of the basics, eat, sleep well, exercise, practice mindfulness, and develop good habits. Your future 45-year-old self will thank you. If you knew this lady, you'd be laughing right now. Sorry, bit of an insider. All very good advice. I know you're students. I didn't sleep very well. I certainly didn't eat very well. I was much heavier back in the day. Exercise, probably good advice, but I'll just stick to drinking coffee. And practice mindfulness. Perfect. Mental wellness is good. Set SMART goals every 5 years. Not personally sure what that is. Maybe something for me to Google after this. And stop to pet a dog. I agree with that. A good de-stressor, and that is my companion in my own home office who sits beside me while I hash out Excel spreadsheets and 200-page reports that people put on the shelf and don't read. That's what I had for you. I promised a lot of time for open mic QA. I'm sticking to that. We've got 15 minutes. Now don't be shy. Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm. So these are the words that you would use then to describe your skills. So you just don't have to, like, I wouldn't just put like Windows administration, period, and leave it at that. I'd put firm grasp or working understanding to describe what level of maturity you're at. Very good question. I've actually gone through my profile and done the same thing where I kind of add a maturity scale to it. If you could come up with a complete list, but what you'll find is then when you get that interview and they go, well, what level of are you comfortable with this to an expert extent? And you'll be like, well, maybe not so much. So yeah, use some words around it. You set the definition to what you consider highly advanced and maybe areas you could use improvement on. Good question. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. You guys are getting microphones now. Congratulations.
Okay. So as I was saying, we are from the Information System Security Program, and some of us, I know, we are interested in looking into internships. So how often does Deloitte offer that? I know they had an information session about it recently at SAGE, but for information professionals, like security professionals specifically.
Good question. I'm no longer affiliated with Big Four firms. I've done my boot time there. I've got the scars on my back to prove it. The question was sort of how frequently do those internship positions come up? Back when I was at Deloitte Vancouver, the way it would work is once a year they do one big campus recruiting campaign. That would be the time to look for those sorts of positions, but not the only time. Again, if you take my advice and you go and create that LinkedIn profile, you'll be able to do intelligence gathering. So take a look at your local Deloitte office, find the employees there, and take a look at the ones that have recruiter or headhunter beside their name. Send them a message. Go, hey, what's up? I'm a student about to graduate. I'd really like to get some consulting experience underneath my belt. What do you think is the next best step for me to get involved in this? Whew. Is that cool?
Oh, one more question back.
So just going back to training, if you go to Google and put in Calgary Library Training, they will bring you to a page, the very first link. You get, as part of your free Calgary Public Library card, access to lynda.com, access to all of the various training courses. Save yourself the thousands of dollars. You're getting them for free. It's already your tax money. Just do it.
So I'm going to repeat that because that was a really good message. Now, that's my friend Tyler, also an ex-graduate here. Hey, Tyler. He said, go take advantage of the free library subscription, and then they send you a link to another site.
Library and sign up. Go to Google, put in Calgary Public Library Training. The very first link is, here is how you log into lynda.com. Here's how you log into Rosetta Stone. You want to start working for the Canadian government? Learn French.
Perfect. Good advice there, too. Free books legitimately. I know I've got a bookshelf filled with a lot of expensive paperwork that you just read once and it sits there. I don't need to lecture you guys. I'm sure they made you buy all the CCNA and CCNP books. Next question?
Come on, anybody?
There's got to be a harder question.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
On resumes, can you put online courses that you've taken?
Good question. It was, if you decide to take advantage of some of those freemium courses, can you put it on your resume? Absolutely.
Yeah, right on.
I don't see why you wouldn't want to do that. I just signed up for a course myself, and I'm going to put it on my resume. It's dealing with cryptography and cryptocurrency. It's a free course, all in all, no certificate completion at the end, but it's something I'm going to add to my resume after I'm done with it, because truly, I think the industry is going to go wild ways in regards to commerce. Great question.
One last thing to add for resumes. Metrics are key. Windows System Administrator, 10 machines versus Windows System Administrator, 10,000 machines. Very big difference. When and where possible, put metrics into your resume.
So what he's saying there is put metrics. Did I hear that correctly? Cool. Put metrics into your resume. I guess that would make sense because I'd have to, if I did network engineering again and put that into my resume, I'd have to put a little caveat in 2004. things have progressed since then.
Else? Go.
I just finished my SATE network technician, so right now I'm doing an internship. I just want to ask you because currently I have CCNA and CCNA security. So most of the companies, they look for CISSP. And I think it's, they need to start looking for GSec because CISSP is more of a managerial, and in my opinion, like, I'm just starting out, so my thoughts are, even if you're not in information security, if you're serious about yourself, then you can get CISSP, but it doesn't really like verify your technical skill. So do you think it's, I think GSec doesn't have any work experience required, so what are your thoughts about GSec versus CISSP?
Oh man, you've hit on a political hot point for professionals about the CISP. There's a lot of debate about it, right? It's too technical, it's not technical enough, it doesn't truly capture what information security is. You know, you have a room of 100 professionals and they're all defining it differently. When it comes down to it, do you need it to get jobs? Unfortunately, yes. I didn't make that job posting up, right? This was actually working for a major card brand. I'm gonna go back to the slide here to show you. This job posting, this job clipping was for a major card brand, right? So should you give up if you see CISP listed on there and you do not have it? No. Specifically for the CISP, you can take the education, you can do the training, you can do the exam. And then what you become is an associate of ISE squared. Okay, so now you've done the book training, you've proved yourself by taking the exam and getting a pass on it, and the way you'd position that in your resume is I'm an associate of ISE squared, I'm expecting to achieve my full CISSP accreditation, year blah. I know this because I went through it too. So absolutely, does the industry need to look beyond the CISP? Personal opinion, Heb? Absolutely. There's other very valuable certifications out there that you can achieve. Unfortunately, the CISP has been around the longest, which is why you see it so predominantly mentioned in these job postings. So don't give up if you see it mentioned there. Absolutely go for it. Grab the training material, do it. The exam isn't free, sort of say, but it's very, very, very worthwhile to do. Another one too is the Comptia Security Plus. Back in the old days, I wouldn't have recommended this one, but now we've got some employees in-house doing it, and I see the value in it because the course material's been redone. And lastly, the GIAC, Security Essentials, the GSEC. My cursory look on the requirements list there didn't show any professional working experience. I believe that too would be a very good gateway. If you got all three of these, you'd be an all-star. So you're in HR, you've passed the initial filtering, and now you're at the interview stage with the technical team that you want to work for. These things would pop on the resume and set you apart from the rest of the pack. Great question.
That's really good advice. And yeah, just touching on that, a lot of those job descriptions are written by HR that have no security background. So I'd also put on that, leverage your LinkedIn, like the heck out of your LinkedIn, and ask for help from anyone. Put your name to kind of filter through the top and get past that initial hurdle of HR. So yeah, that's great. We do have like 2 more minutes. Anyone else? Well, right on.
Would you find any downside to applying for a job where you don't necessarily meet all the skills? Like if the thing is written by HR, they may gloss over a few things, and at least even if you have the skills to qualify for it, but don't have all the all the acronyms.
Right. You'll never strike. You'll never forget the sports analogy.
Miss
You
100%
don't know
of the shots
unless
you don't take.
yeah, exactly. You never know until you try, right? Again, if you see these things and you go, I took Tom's advice, I hit off on 98% of these skills, but I don't have this one thing. Should I apply or not? Absolutely, right? This is a competitive opportunity to show off yourself. If it turns out all the other folks who have applied for that job are terrible, you're damn right you're going to be a shining star at meeting off just at 98% of the requirements. Go for it.
And I would say there's a workforce shortage, right? So you're in the driver's seat if you've got a majority of those skills. So
Something I didn't mention here, and I know we're running short on time, I'm looking at my watch, and that's
minute.
fine. Cool. Be willing to travel. So I'm watching my brother try to break into the industry, and he's done okay, but there's struggles. Let's face it, Alberta is facing an economic situation that isn't overly desirable for anybody. Be willing to travel. And so if you find that internship in a Deloitte practice in Toronto, go for it. I had to move to Vancouver, right? That was my big gamble. That was my big role. Do I regret it? Absolutely not, because I needed to do it to break into information security. So be willing to travel.
Well, thank you so much. That was a really interesting presentation and discussion. I'd like to give you a big thank you for being here today and talking to our group. We'll reconvene back in this room at 1:15. Please make sure you visit our vendors, have some great conversations with them, and enjoy the lunch. So thanks again, Thomas.
I will be around for the remainder of the day, so if you do want to ask me more questions or things, come say hello.